Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Evening with Bhante Suddhāso on BNN. So tonight, Bhante will be talking about one of his favorite subjects, which is Samādhi. So he's quite happy about that, right? Yeah, happiness, cheerfulness. Well, certainly our guests tuning in right now are quite happy. So, hello, Bradley, Ryan, Geeta. Evening, Jens, not gents. Hello, Stacy. Hello, Gabriella, Lilia, Scott, James. Welcome to Reed, Mohammed, Ethan, Kevin, Sally, Julia, welcome back, and Karen and Maya. And Gabriela says, Samādhi is the best. And James says, I'm so excited for this, Bhante. And Mark says, greetings, Bhante. Oh, Venerable Akaliko, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Welcome. Bhante saying happy Vesak from Australia. Happy Vesak to you as well.
It's already Vesak in Australia?
We will never understand the time difference with Australia. That is a sure thing.
Okay.
All right.
Well, happy Vesak. Here it's not Vesak for another 2 days, so I don't know how that works, but okay, happy Vesak.
And welcome to... Oh, Reed, we already welcomed you. So, but Reed is welcoming Venerable Akaliko. All right, so we will start by chanting the Ratana Sutta as usual, and you can find a copy of the link at the top of the live chat. Oh, Venerable Akaliko is saying 6th for the Thai tradition, 7th for Sri Lankan tradition. So I think we're following the Sri Lankan.
We're actually following the American.
Yes, we're unintentionally following the Sri Lankan by following the American.
Okay.
Looks like it. This was not intentional. All right. So we can start by chanting the Ratana Sutta.
Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantareke sabeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakata sunantu vasitam tasmahi bhutani sameta sabbe metam kabrota manusiya pajaya divacharato chaharanti eva ling tasmahi nera kataha pamata yan kinchivitam gidhavahurang vasage suvayam ratanam panitam Nano samangati tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu kayam viragam amatam panitam yadajjaga sakyamuni samahito Natena dhammena samati kinchi idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu yang buddha seto parivannayi suching samadhi manandhari kanyamahu Samadhina tena samo narinjati idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Ye bhungala Tathagata Satang Pasata Chatari Dhani Yogani Honti Te Dakineya Sugata Sasavakai Te Sudinani Mahapalani Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitang Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yesu Payota Manasa Dalhena Nekamino Gotamasa Sanamhi Te Pati Pata Matang Vigaiha Landa Mudhanim Muding Punjamana Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Paritang Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yatinda Kilo Pataving Sito Siya Chatum Bivate Via Sampakampio Tatupamam Samburisam Vadami Yo Arya Satchani Avechavasati Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Paritam Yetena Sachena Suvati Hotu Ye Arya Satchani Vibhavayanti Gambhira Panyena Sudesitani Kinjapi Te Honti Bhusapamata Te Bhavam Atamam Adiyanti
Idampi
Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Yetena Sachena Suvati Hotu Sahava Sadasana Sampadaya Jayasu Dhamma Jahita Bhavanti Sakaya Deti Vichike Chitansha Silabbatam Vapi Yadati Kinchi Chatuhapaye Hitavipamuto Chachabhitanani Abhambo Katum Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Paridam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Kinchapi Sokham Mankaroti Papakam Kayena Vacha Udachetasava Avambo Sota Sapati Chadaya Hampada Ditapada Samuta Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Vanapagumbe Yatha Positam Gimhanamase Patamasmin Gimhe Tatupamam Dhammavaram Madesai Nibbanagaming Paramam Hitaya Vidampi Buddhe Ratanam Panitam Yetena Sachena Suvati Hotu Varo Varanyo Varado Varaharo Anutaro Dhammavaram Adesai Idampi Buddhe Ratanam Panitam Yetena Sachena Suvati Hotu Kinam Puranam Navam Nati Sambhavam Virata Chitta Ayatike Bhavasmi Te Kina Bija Virulin Chanda Nibbanti Hirayatayam Paripo Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Yetena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam Deva Manusa Pujitam Buddham Namasama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam Deva Manusa Pujitam Dhammam Namasama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vahantaleke Tathagatam devamanusapujitam sangham namasamasuvati hotu. Etena sachavanjena lukavopasamentu. Etena sachavanjena bhayavopasamentu. Etena sachavanjena rogavopasamentu. Okay, so please get in a meditation posture. Ayasoma can tell you what posture that means.
Sitting on a chair.
Or if you're interested in samadhi, you can sit in full lotus. So once again, if you're capable of sitting full lotus, please sit in full lotus. If you're not capable of sitting in full lotus, make a determination to do at least 20 minutes of hip opening stretches every day for the next month. And then try again. Otherwise, you can sit in half lotus or quarter lotus, or the easy posture, as it's called, which for some inexplicable reason in English-speaking countries, they call the Burmese posture. Or you can sit in a kneeling position, or if none of that works for you, you can sit in a chair. But whatever position you sit in, take a moment to make sure you're settled on your sitting bones, that your pelvis is tilted slightly forward, your spine is very straight, that your shoulders are swept back and relaxed, your hands resting gently in your lap with your thumb tips lightly touching. If your eyes are open, keep them pointed down at the ground about 1 meter in front of you. Otherwise, you can close your eyes. And take a few long, slow, deep breaths. With each breath, letting the body and mind relax. Paying special attention to relaxing the face, the forehead, the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw. Letting the face relax. Letting the body settle into stillness. Making a resolution to allow the body to be still for the entire period of meditation. Letting your breathing resume its natural rhythm. Letting the breathing be subtle, soft, and gentle. And bring your attention fully within the body. So feeling your whole body as a single radiant object. And centering attention at your hands where they touch in your lap. And from that center point, developing a sharp, clear awareness of the whole body, centered at the hands. So every moment, resolutely, firmly placing the mind in the body, resolutely, firmly holding attention in the body, and keeping the mind still, not letting it move from the center point of the hands. And as your attention becomes more settled in the body, bring attention to the subtle feeling of pleasure all through the body, subtle feeling of pleasantness all through the body. So the more steady and still and alert the mind becomes, the more intense and pleasant that feeling becomes. And as you become aware of that subtle euphoria in the body, try to gently, slowly increase it, gradually magnifying the feeling of euphoria. can help to have a slight smile on your lips, reveling in the peaceful, sublime euphoria, growing with each moment of samadhi. The more we focus on the body, the sharper, the clearer, and the stiller the mind becomes, the stronger the euphoria becomes. Remember to keep the mind still, not moving from its place, firmly planted in the body, bright, knowing, steady. Every moment gradually turning up the feeling of euphoria, gradually intensifying the pleasantness of the body. When the bell rings, stay with the meditation for a few more seconds. And when the bell is fully done ringing, then you can begin slowly adjusting your posture, maintaining the peacefulness of the mind.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Bhante, for guiding us in meditation. And welcome to Yasmin, who's saying, thank you, Bhante, for your teachings and for your discipline in delivering these precious truths. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And hello, Adriana. Good to see you online. And welcome to Chris. And Stacy, who's saying chanting is getting much easier these days. Great. Gabriella does Burmese.
Burmese chanting?
No, Burmese sitting position.
Good. Then you have something to work towards.
All right. And James is saying, thank you, Bhante. I felt as though an ocean wave of euphoria crashed over this body and overtook the mind into a state of thought-free pleasure.
Great. Good.
Gabriela says, I also do Burmese chanting. Great. All right.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Well, good evening, friends. So we just did some chanting and a period of meditation. And during the meditation, I was first off giving the basic instruction of practicing mindfulness of the body. So cultivating samadhi by focusing the mind on the body, holding the mind steady and still in sharp, clear awareness of the body. Once the mind is relatively steady, then to start looking for a subtle feeling of pleasantness, a subtle euphoria in the body. And the stronger your samadhi is, the stronger that stillness and sharpness of mind is, then the clearer the euphoria is, the easier it is to find that feeling of euphoria. And once we find it, then we can start slowly increasing it. So keeping the mind firmly focused on the body, keeping the mind steady and unmoving in the body, and slowly, gradually magnifying the feeling of euphoria. So this is the basic meditation method that I was recommending. And I recommend this method because it's one that I use very often. This is not something that I was specifically instructed in, the intentional cultivation of euphoria during meditation. But it was something which, over the years, I came to realize was a way of accelerating the progression of samadhi. So as you practice samadhi, as you get deeper into samadhi, then this feeling of euphoria will start to arise on its own. And it will get stronger and stronger on its own. And eventually it can get so strong that it drives out all distraction from the mind. It can get so strong that it completely eliminates all the hindrances from the mind. And at this point, it's possible to enter into first jhana. So this quality of euphoria is, in Pali, it's called piti, which you'll also see translated as rapture or bliss or ecstasy. And it's one of the distinctive characteristics of first and second jhana, these stages of a very strong samadhi. So intentionally cultivating piti, intentionally cultivating this euphoria, is a bit of a shortcut to jhana. Now, of course, it's always dangerous to talk about shortcuts to jhana because there really aren't any. You just have to sit down and hold your body and mind still, keep it sharp and steady for a while, and you'll enter jhana. A while here, by the way, might mean 2 or 3 months, by the way, just to be clear on that. But yeah, hold your mind steady and sharp for a while, and you'll enter jhana. So it's actually not that complicated. It's not that easy, but it's not that complicated. So intentionally cultivating euphoria accelerates this process a little bit. And it can accelerate it quite a bit, in fact. It can make the development of samadhi go much more quickly. And there's a number of reasons for that. One of the foremost reasons is because it's pleasant. We like pleasant things. We like pleasure. And one of the reasons why we tend to dislike meditation is because meditation is boring and painful. So we like things that are pleasant and interesting. We dislike things that are painful and boring. It's pretty standard human nature. It's pretty standard sentient nature. Pretty much all sentient beings have this. The resident temple cat, Stan, he exemplifies this on a daily basis. He's always in some state of boredom, some state of dukkha. And you can see him wandering around in the monastery going, dukkha, dukkha, dukkha. Is there happiness over there? No, only dukkha. Is there happiness over there? No, just dukkha. Is there happiness over there? No, dukkha. Maybe there will be happiness outside. No, just dukkha. Maybe there'll be happiness when I eat. Ooh, temporary sukha, followed by dukkha. So he really exemplifies this. And we can see the same thing in our meditation, where we're just kind of like skimming from one experience of dukkha to another. And then finally we're like, okay, this sucks. I'm just going to go watch TV. TV, at least, is a reliable source of distraction, if nothing else. And then you actually watch TV and you realize that's also dukkha. I haven't watched TV in years and years and years, of course, but I remember it being dukkha. So much dukkha. Anyway, so intentionally cultivating sukha. So sukha is pleasure, pleasantness. Intentionally cultivating sukha in our meditation practice helps to keep us interested because we like sukha, we like pleasure, we like pleasant things, we like pleasant experiences. And we're interested in doing things that produce pleasure. We're interested in doing things that make our experience pleasant. So actively cultivating euphoria as part of our samadhi practice makes it much more interesting. So many people lament that they hate samadhi practice because they find it boring. They find it this boring, painful struggle. Put the mind on the object and force it to stay there. Okay, this sucks. Can we do something else? Okay, force the mind back on the object. Nope, the object is still boring. I still hate this. I would much rather be doing something else. Okay, force the mind back on the object. Yep, it's still dukkha. It still sucks. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Anybody go through this once in a while in their meditation practice? I guess someone's laughing. Is that because this sounds familiar? Do you go through this every now and then?
Not anymore, but I've done it in the past.
Okay, so some familiarity there. May, have you gone through this? May confirms, yes, she's gone through this as well. Very common experience. People tell me about this experience all the time. So actively cultivating a sense of pleasure in our meditation practice is then much more interesting, much more enjoyable. It's kind of like when you go to the lunch table and you see like, okay, bitter greens, unripe fruit, undercooked rice, so much dukkha. And at the end, there's this beautiful, freshly baked cake. And someone's giving you permission to just eat cake. Like you can skip the undercooked rice and the bitter greens and just go straight to the cake and just eat nothing but cake. It's like, finally, a lunch that was worth coming to. How wonderful. So that's what it's like. You can give yourself permission to just eat cake with your meditation practice. That's actually okay. Meditation practice doesn't need to be this boring, painful struggle. It can actually be pleasant and enjoyable. It can, in fact, be ecstatic. It can be euphoric. It can be extremely, intensely pleasurable. And the surprising thing is that we have the power to make it so. We have the power to make our meditation euphoric. We have the power to induce and magnify that feeling of euphoria by willpower, by force of will, by intention. We can choose to do this. And if we choose to make our samadhi euphoric, if we choose to make our meditation practice pleasurable, then it automatically becomes much more interesting. And since it's interesting, we're much more committed to it. We're much more enthusiastic. We're much more focused on it. We're much less likely to get distracted. We're much less interested in thinking about other things. We're much less likely to want to get up and leave. And we're that much more committed to deepening our practice. So this is why I say it's a shortcut to jhana, because it helps us stay with our samadhi practice. It helps us stay with the meditation. And piti is a bodily feeling. This euphoria is a bodily feeling. So this is why it lines up so neatly with mindfulness of the body, and especially mindfulness of the whole body. Because piti is this powerful euphoria all through the body. So as the euphoria becomes stronger and stronger, we want to feel it, so we focus on feeling our body. And the more steady and stable the mind becomes in feeling the body, then the more intense that samadhi-born euphoria becomes. So it creates this feedback loop. So these days, climate scientists are talking about feedback loops. At least they were before the plague spread all over the planet and people started dying in massive numbers. But before that started, climate scientists were talking about feedback loops, which is basically where human behavior gradually destroys the entire planet. But instead, we're trying to create the feedback loop, which gradually destroys all of our hindrances. So it's this feedback loop of focusing on the body, producing euphoria, focusing on euphoria, intensifies awareness of the body, which intensifies the euphoria, which intensifies awareness of the body, which builds and builds and builds until we're not doing anything at all except just holding our mind steady on the body. And all the hindrances drop away. And then you'll discover what it feels like to have a mind which is not moving and yet is completely alert. A mind which is completely immobile and yet clearly knowing. And a mind which is radiantly joyful. A mind which has not the slightest shred of depression, of downheartedness, of pain. Not the slightest trace of restlessness or agitation. And in this way, you can experience jhana. You can experience the opening stages of jhana. And when the mind is well concentrated in this way, then if you want to do vipassana practice, of course, you're welcome to. If you want to deepen your samadhi, you're welcome to do that as well. It's kind of up to you. Once the mind is fully stabilized in first jhana in this way, you can decide whether you want to cultivate deeper jhana or whether you want to do some vipassana practice. So I like to do the recognition of impermanence, in case you haven't picked that up through the hundreds of Dhamma talks I've given on this subject over the past few years. But of course, any other vipassana practice is perfectly fine. As long as it's cultivating a deep awareness of the three characteristics of emptiness, of the Four Noble Truths, then you're going in the right direction. It doesn't really matter exactly what method you use. But you'll notice that when the mind is firmly stabilized in samadhi, then your vipassana practice is much more powerful, much more potent, it's much more effective. So a couple of things that I should say, though, about this particular approach to samadhi practice. So as the euphoria builds, it's important not to get excited. So this came up a couple days ago. I think Kevin asked in the live chat about excitement coming up when the euphoria starts to build and how that excitement was weakening his samadhi. And yeah, that's exactly the problem with it. So as the euphoria builds, it's important not to get like, yay, yes, yay, euphoria, this is so great, at last, because that's just restlessness and agitation. And that will weaken your samadhi. And as your samadhi weakens, then the euphoria will probably start to fade. Or it becomes tinged with this uncomfortable edge of agitation and restlessness. The other pitfall to watch out for is attachment, which is also a common experience. So as the euphoria starts to build, it's very common to get attached to it. We don't want it to end. We really like it, so we don't want it to end. This especially happens as the euphoria builds. So it can get to a point where it's exceedingly intense, extremely intense. So more intense than any pleasurable experience you've had. So very, very intense euphoria all through the body. So naturally, we don't want it to end because it feels great. It feels amazingly good. Of course, we don't want it to stop. But then that grip, that grasping at the experience also then breaks our samadhi, weakens our samadhi. So we don't want it to end. So there's this fear of it ending. There's this craving for it to continue, craving for it to build. This desperation starts to come up in the mind. And none of that is peaceful. And all of that is movement of mind. And whenever the mind moves, samadhi weakens. So as we cultivate this euphoria, it's necessary to do so with the willingness to allow it to end at any time, the willingness to allow it to cease. The recognition that the euphoria is not the most important thing in the whole world. It's just a temporary experience. It's really nice, yes, but it's just a temporary experience. It's conditional, which means it depends upon particular conditions for it to be present. It's not reliable, in that we can only get it under certain conditions, and under other conditions, it's quite challenging to produce. So this means it's not a reliable source of happiness. So keeping these things in mind. Recognizing that it's not the ultimate. So one friend of mine, he's a monk who I've known for 10 years or so at this point. He said that when he started to get strong euphoria during meditation, he became so obsessed with it that that was the only reason he was meditating. He would sit down to meditate thinking, okay, I want to feel euphoria. I want piti. I want rapture. I want euphoria. I want ecstasy. That's it. And if he could get it, then he considered that a good meditation. And if he couldn't get it, then he considered that a bad meditation. And he totally lost sight of the fact that this is merely a stepping stone on the path to Nibbana. He totally lost sight of the fact that this is simply a supporting condition that helps us develop samadhi, which itself is a supporting condition that helps us develop wisdom. He became so consumed and obsessed with this euphoria that was all he did for years, was just try to get euphoria in his meditation, and he totally lost sight of everything else. And eventually he realized what he was doing. He realized that he had gotten obsessed with one of the cobblestones on the path to Nibbana instead of walking along the path. He was just sitting there fixating on the first cobblestone on the path. Eventually he realized how silly that was. And ironically, once he recognized that and released his grip on the euphoria, then his meditation practice became much smoother. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. So especially if we haven't had this experience of strong euphoria before, then when we first get it, it's natural that we get obsessed with it. It's natural that we get excited by it. It's natural that we get attached to it. That's all perfectly normal. But it's important to remind ourselves, and this will usually be after the meditation, to remind ourselves that this is just part of the scenery on the way to Nibbana. It's not the unconditional happiness that we're seeking. It's just some conditional happiness along the way. It's a little handful of candy along the way. So again, as you cultivate this euphoria, recognize that it's a temporary, conditional experience. It's not the final goal. It's just something that helps us progress towards the unconditional happiness of full enlightenment. So I think that's all I have to say for the moment. So if you have any questions, please type them in the live chat and I'll answer them as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So actually, Venerable Akaliko shared a few things. So I'll address that straight away. So Venerable says, a problem for many people is that they hear about pleasurable meditation states but haven't experienced them. And then striving for experiencing these states becomes an issue, using willpower. But that pushes the pleasant states away rather than striving or using will much better to let go, not to want. This is why the Buddha recommended certain themes to turn the mind to which induce joy, piti, such as the anusatis. Thus isn't a forceful practice, but a natural one that develops all by itself with the right cause and conditions.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that is the one challenge here is sparking this practice in the first place. So the practice I'm describing depends upon there already being at least a trace of euphoria present in one's samadhi practice. If there's not even a trace of euphoria to be found, then it's quite difficult to practice samadhi in this way. So if there's not even a trace of euphoria in one's samadhi practice, then it's important to do what you can to produce it. And the anusatis that you mentioned are a great example. So the recollection of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, recollection of one's own generosity, one's own virtue, recollection of the devas. These are all things that bring up a sense of joy in the mind. And that can make it a little bit easier to start to get in touch with this feeling of euphoria. Also, as I mentioned before, just cultivating samadhi practice with sincerity and diligence will itself automatically result in euphoria. So that's another way that one starts to get in touch with this feeling, so that one can then produce it directly, magnify it directly. So that was my own experience. My own experience was starting with samadhi and starting to discover this feeling. And then realizing that by intentionally magnifying that feeling, my samadhi became much stronger. Okay, what else is there?
Quite a lot. So James says, thank you, Bhante. I felt as though, I read that already earlier. Sally says, thank you, Bhante. I was aimed at training samadhi, vipassana, because I thought that's the way to gain bliss, but it was a strong comparison with this morning's sutta study. This mind is ultimate disease. Is the practice of Buddhism to decrease the mind disease, or is it more important to just abandon this mind totally since it's incurable?
So the practice of seeing the mind as a disease is to produce disenchantment. To recognize that there's no value in clinging to the mind or the components of mind because they are inherently unsatisfying. Why would you want to hold on to a disease? Of course, we don't want to hold on to a disease. So it's about cultivating disenchantment with all of samsara, with everything in samsara, including our own mind. That's what that perception is about. But then we reflect, well, then what can I do in order to clearly understand the nature of the mind so that I can be free of it? Well, first I need to develop strong samadhi. Then, with the basis of strong samadhi, I can develop penetrating insight. Okay?
And Mohammed says, had a hard time concentrating during the meditation. The few times I did, though, my body kind of convulsed sometimes with piti, probably.
If your body's convulsing, that doesn't sound particularly good. Your body should be completely still, unless you mean something else by convulsing.
Then there's a quote from Stan. What if I knock this off the table? No, still dukkha.
Actually, Stan's not much of a one for knocking things off of tables, except that one time he smashed all my teacups.
But that's because he lost balance. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, I think that was clumsiness rather than malice.
And James is asking, does intentional sukha cultivation risk it being artificial, or is the fact it's conditioned mean all sukha is artificial and conditioned?
Well, yeah, all sukha is artificial and conditioned. That's true. That's exactly correct. So in this case, we're using artificial sukha as a way of cultivating samadhi. So the way you check as to whether or not it's going correctly is whether or not your samadhi is growing. It's very simple. So if your samadhi is getting stronger, then you're doing it right. If your samadhi is not getting stronger, then you're doing it wrong. So very simple. It's all about the results.
And he also adds, actually, Reed says the simile of the cake, which is hilarious. I love that. Now it's going to be a Buddhist Insights thing, the Bhante Suddhāso and the simile of the cake. And James is saying, this all makes sense to me, by the way. Mahakassapa was told by the Buddha to develop body mindfulness connected with joy.
Yeah, that's an example of this.
And Scott is saying, is active cultivation a gentle intention? If not, how to avoid efforting and going of the object of focus?
I recommend doing it gently. So your primary attention should always be on just using body mindfulness as a way of cultivating samadhi. That should be your primary focus. So the gentle magnification of euphoria it's more like a little add-on, a little subtle add-on that as it grows, it becomes more and more predominant. But these two practices are not separate from each other because the euphoria is still a bodily sensation. Okay? As for your question about efforting, well, there is a certain amount of effort involved. So meditation is simultaneously about making effort and letting go. If you only do one or the other, then you don't get good results. Again, in the simile of the lute string from the Sona Sutta, the Buddha said the string should be not too tight, but not too loose. If it's too tight, you don't get a good sound. If it's too loose, you don't get a good sound. But if it's just right, then you get a good sound. So it's the same. If we put forth too much effort, then our meditation doesn't go well. If we put forth too little effort, it doesn't go well. We have to do something just right, in between. Okay.
And Sally's asking, when we intend to bring on euphoria, euphoria, does that mean switching to Vedana? How long should we focus on the good feeling, then switch back to the body, then to euphoria again? Feedback loops like this?
There's no switching. There's no switching. Simultaneous. It's the same practice, actually. Simultaneous. No switching.
And Reed says, Bhante, because I'm not quite clear on it, what is the point of deepening jhana except to turn the mind toward vipassana from it once the mind is nice and honed to a concentrated point?
Well, that's its main purpose, actually, is that it does clear away all distraction from the mind and cultivate extremely sharp mindfulness and a very steady, alert mind, which makes it possible to clearly penetrate the depths of the subconscious, which otherwise is not accessible to us. Something that you can't get with an unconcentrated mind, with an unstable mind. But also, you'll notice that in the cultivation of samadhi, that you actually naturally start to develop a number of qualities which are supportive to insight. You start to practice renunciation. You start to practice self-restraint. You start to practice letting go. So a lot of qualities which are directly related to the cultivation of wisdom. Okay.
So is there any, or is that the only point? Like, is that the only point to develop vipassana? With the only point of developing the jhanas to then develop vipassana?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, but you need to watch out for this trap that then some people get into of then thinking, well, in that case, I'll just only do vipassana. Because if you only do vipassana, then without the support of samadhi, it won't be effective. It will only be superficial. It will only get limited results.
And Gabriela says, I consider samadhi to be of equal importance to vipassana practice, but a question I have is related to the difficulty of switching from euphoria to tranquil stability. How do we equalize samadhi and sati in samatha practice?
So the switching from euphoria to peaceful tranquility is third jhana. So if you're not already well established in second jhana, then you don't need to worry about that yet. But actually at that point, it actually is quite natural. You just turn the mind towards peacefulness. And you'll notice that naturally the mind starts to drop the euphoria and move into deeper peacefulness. But yeah, if you're not well established in second jhana, then you don't need to worry about third jhana just yet. Focus on getting into first and second. Then you can worry about third.
And James says, is this kind of deep samadhi conducive to supernormal powers, in particular seeing past lives, which we often find monks doing in the suttas?
Yes, but don't get distracted by them. That's not our primary purpose. My training has always been to see supernormal powers as side effects, which may come about as the result of our meditation practice, but which are not to be intentionally cultivated. So if they come on their own, that's okay, but don't pursue them. Just pursue liberation. After you've got liberation, if you want to cultivate psychic powers, that's fine. But before then, don't waste your time. That can become a huge time waste. You can spend lifetimes pursuing psychic powers, deepening psychic powers, mastering psychic powers, and in the meantime, you're not getting one step closer to enlightenment. So don't get distracted. Just see it as a side effect which may or may not happen. Okay?
And Victor says, how can someone with ADD like me be able to achieve jhana? Any clue?
Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. Just keep doing it over and over and over again. Just do it over and over and over again. And gradually, you get better and better and better.
Right? No excellence can be acquired without constant practice.
Is that a British saying?
Basically. Well, it is a saying with a British accent. Mohammed says, "Oh no, I'm beginning to have the same problem as your monk friend. Haha."
Well, it's fine. For a period of time, that's okay. You can see it as a stage of practice which naturally happens. Just keep in mind that there's something higher. You find this in one of the suttas where the Buddha talks about his practice before attaining awakening. My mind is blanking right now on which one. It's near the beginning of the Majjhima Nikaya. The Buddha says, basically, he attained first jhana, and he was like, oh, this is great, but there's something better than this. There's something higher. So he keeps practicing and practicing, and he gets second jhana, and he's like, wow, this is great too, but there's something better. There's something higher. And he practices and practices in this way through all the jhanas. And then he's like, but there's something higher. And then he practiced for full enlightenment, and he attained full enlightenment, and then he realized there's nothing higher than this. So that's the thing. Yeah, cultivate your euphoria, get obsessed with it, get attached to it, that's fine. Just remember, there's something higher. There's something better. Okay?
And Gabriela is asking, how important is it to generate tranquility after euphoria? Should you, intentionally generate it by itself or just after piti?
Okay, once again, after you're fully established in second jhana, turn the mind towards peacefulness. That's it.
And Mohammed is asking, I get a really low form of piti usually when I meditate, and twice I've gotten niramisa, sukha, but this was months ago. What can I do to refine or increase the level of piti I feel?
So I don't know what you mean by niramisa sukha. So that just means non-physical happiness. So that can mean any kind, like all kinds of different things. So I don't know exactly what you mean by that. As to what you can do, really focus on your samadhi practice. That's what you can do. And really watch what you're doing with your mind the rest of the time when you're not meditating. This is really, really, really important. Try to maintain samadhi all day long, no matter what you're doing. Keep your mind silent, sharp, still, steady, and alert all the time, no matter what you're doing. This will make your samadhi practice much stronger. And avoid engaging in any kind of exciting, agitating, or disturbing activities. Definitely don't watch horror movies. That's totally out of the question. But also try to avoid doing anything that stirs up or agitates the mind. If you haven't already cut music out of your life, it's time. Okay?
And he's also asking, can you do those recollections while meditating?
Yeah, you can. Yep.
And Reed is saying, I'm not used to using the hands as my point of focus. And it's interesting that they do seem to be the area where piti always seems to first arise. Something I've noticed in the past as well. Quote, where it seems to first arise in my experience, I meant, hopefully, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Oh, and Kevin is encouraging people to practice Dana. So if you wish to support the monastery, you can go to buddhistinsights.com/donate. Sadhu, 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 Kevin. And everyone who is supporting keeping this place afloat. And Scott is saying, I've heard some teachers suggest that jhana leads to purification of the mind. Is there support for this in the suttas?
It leads to temporary purity of mind, but not permanent purity of mind. Yeah.
And Gabriela says, okay, Bhante, I will do my best to notice the mind inclining to peacefulness on its own. And Sally says, so we know the body sitting here and at the same time sense the euphoria arise from the body. I asked whether it's switching because I thought euphoria is feeling Vedana.
Don't overthink it. Just feel it. Yeah.
And Gabriela says, great master, I have spent all my time to learn walking across water. How long did it take you to learn this? 40 years, 10 pence. What? 10 pence was all I spent to outdo your 40 years. Oops.
Is this a joke?
I don't know. 40 years of practice. I took a ferry. Maybe it's a Zen.
I think it's a joke.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Da, da, da. Let me see.
Well, actually...
got lost in my translation.
Well, Thich Nhat Hanh did say, he said, people think walking on water is a miracle, but walking on the earth is a true miracle.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
That's having a great. And
see, that's going to become new Zen stories. Like in 100 years, people will say, the student went to the Zen master and the master said, have a great.
Yeah.
They don't have the Zen students meditating, have a great, have a great, have a great.
No coming, no going. All right, it's getting late. We're like getting deranged. So Gita is asking, Bhante, isn't training in single pointedness to cut through the defilements and clearly see the Four Noble Truths?
I mean, it supports that. It supports one in that it temporarily purifies the mind of defilement, which makes it easier to clearly see the nature of defilement, and therefore easier to see the nature of the three characteristics in the Four Noble Truths. But cultivating samadhi by itself does not cause enlightenment. This is very clear in the suttas. So samadhi is a factor of the path, but it's not the entire path.
And Sally is asking, can we use this bringing euphoria method when we focus on breathing? If so, how? Since Bhante said euphoria arises from the whole body, so whole body is easier for intentionally arising euphoria?
Yeah, actually, it's in the Anapanasati instructions. The Buddha says, breathing in, one trains, I will experience euphoria. Breathing out, one trains, I will experience euphoria. So it's right there. So just with every breath, feel the euphoria building. Breathing in, feel the euphoria building. Breathing out, feel the euphoria building. Yeah, it goes quite well with the breathing, actually. I just don't normally do breath meditation, so I don't normally instruct in that way. But yeah, it works quite well with breath meditation as well.
And Jeannie, welcome. She's saying, glad to be part of this live for a change. And we're glad that you're here too. And Bradley says, so no more Netflix binge watching?
That's correct. Cancel your Netflix subscription.
And Maya says, have any monk or a layperson with a disciplined practice be able to feel the layers of matter in the head, like the brain, like feel it?
Yeah, you can do that. That's part of mindfulness of the body, is feeling the inside of the body as well as the outside. Yeah.
And Wabbit is like, should you cut music out completely or just reduce it?
Well, that depends on whether or not you want to attain enlightenment.
Ah. And Marielle says, horror movies make no sense for me. Why would you want to be scared on purpose? Facts. And Victor says, thank you. I commit 30 minutes a day. Is that enough? Or do I need more time, Bhante? Anapanasati is the only thing I am comfortable to practice.
Yeah, 30 minutes a day is great. Yeah, keep that up. Of course, more is always better, but 30 minutes a day is a good minimum.
And cute. Bradley says, there is something satisfying about being scared, but knowing that you're actually safe. Well, Bhante doesn't agree.
Do as you wish.
Sally says, can euphoria arise when the body when the body is intense or need body to really relax? I felt that when the body has tense, I just want to relax it and can't feel much euphoria.
Generally speaking, when your body is relaxed, you'll have better samadhi. Yeah. So a very, very slight tension in the body is okay. In fact, that's normal. But overall, the body should be very relaxed, like 99% relaxed. Yeah.
And Venerable Ataliko is asking, when Ajahn Brahm visited you, did you get a chance to talk to him about his view on jhana?
Yes, we had many, many conversations on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Mohammed says, is 15 minutes a day a good minimum too?
No.
And that was the last question.
Try to build up to at least 30. 15 minutes a day is fine if you're just getting started with meditation practice, but you should be trying to gradually increase that until you can do at least 30 minutes. In my experience, it's very difficult to get anything close to samadhi in less than half an hour. So I don't like to do periods shorter than that. Except like tonight, when we have a fairly small amount of time and we're doing chanting and we're doing meditation, and we're doing Dhamma talk, we're doing Q&A, we're trying to do a lot of things in a short period of time. Then sometimes we do a bit shorter, like 25 minutes. But generally speaking, I don't recommend doing less than half an hour. It's hard to really do much with the mind in 15 minutes. But when you're new to meditation, 15 minutes feels like 15 hours. So it's a struggle just to keep the mind for 15 minutes. But as you start to get more proficiency with meditation, you want to increase that to at least 30. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Sally is asking, how do we use this method in housework? Focusing on the body is not easy to arise when not sitting, though. I felt I'm in the type attached to meditation and who has aversion to housework.
Yeah, so use the housework as a way to cultivate mindfulness of the body. So when you're sweeping, feel the broom in your hands, feel your feet against the ground, pay full attention to what you're doing. When you're washing dishes, feel the dishes in your hands, feel the water, pay attention to what you're doing. So yeah, cultivate mindfulness and awareness in whatever activity you're doing, and keep the mind silent all through it. And yeah, you can cultivate euphoria as well. Cultivate that sense of happiness in being present, happiness in being alert, happiness in being peaceful, happiness in having a silent mind. Yeah. Okay.
All right, and that is all for tonight. Thank you so much, Bhante, for all your teachings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we will be meeting again with, guess who? Bhante Suddhāso. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for a lot of euphoria, thanks to Dhamma Sukha from the Suttas. And then tomorrow evening, we'll have a special virtual guest, Bhante Suddhāso from Los Angeles, who will be joining us as usual at 7:30 p.m. and sharing Dhamma from the West Coast. And then on Thursday, we'll have our virtual Vesak, our first virtual Vesak. So we will be meeting same times, 8 a.m. In the morning and 7:30 p.m. Well, in the evening because it's p.m. And there will be some fun activities, Dhamma activities that day. We will take the refuges and precepts in the morning, do some meditations, recollecting how awesome the Buddha is, how awesome the Dhamma is, how awesome the Sangha is. Lots of great stuff all on Thursday coming up soon. And then on Thursday, we'll be meeting again, same hours, morning and evening. And then this weekend, we'll have the last 2 day-longs dedicated to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Also with Bhante Suddhāso. I'm kind of digging my this voice intonation.
So you're starting to notice who does all of the Dhamma teachings around here? Most of them, anyway. So I keep encouraging Ayasoma to be on the schedule more often, and she still somehow keeps not being on the schedule very often.
I will be on, I think, Thursday evening or Friday evening. I don't remember. Also on Monday evening. Oh, and on Friday evening we'll have monks chat, so we'll be there on Friday as well. But I think maybe on Thursday it's still you, actually.
Anyway, thanks for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
All right. Have a great